Hello, welcome back to the show. We have a bit of a summer sabbatical. I think there have been other things more interesting to you than watching this show, but it just so happens that this Thursday evening, there's no football from the Euros, so you might cast an eye in this direction. Sheffield Live TV, later on YouTube, and we owe you, Blades fans, because before we took this summer break, Sheffield Wednesday were very much in the news, and we covered with Chris Turner and Brian Laws and many of the troubling aspects of the situation at Hillsborough at the moment. We also did a big show on Alex Miller's book, Recalling 1991. So, high time. We talked about Slaviša Djukanovic being appointed by Sheffield United, and who better than a couple of very confirmed Blades to join us. One, a lifelong supporter, Richard Caborn. How are you, Richard?
I'm very well, Alan. Yourself?
I'm excellent, thanks. The former sports minister and the former Sheffield United player, among others, Wimbledon, Aston Villa, and a regular on this show, I'm glad to say, Kevin Gage, looking in fine form there, Kevin.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. You too, sir.
Thank you very much. Not only in fine form, but very patriotic there, may I say.
Well, yeah, I thought it was the only shirt to wear this morning in recognition of a decent England performance and obviously qualifying in style last night.
Well, we'll talk about whether they qualified in style a bit later. There's a lot of debate about England and whether they're playing well or not. But the one unanswerable thing, Richard, former sports minister, is that they are playing winning football at the moment. You must be enjoying it too.
Yeah, very much so. And the back three were pretty good as well from South Yorkshire last night. We're all in the defence together, I think, and I think Harry coming back. I think he put a bit of confidence into the side as well. So I think a good performance. But what an opposition they're going to. We don't know yet what the opposition is going to be. But it's one of three, and any one of those three, it's pretty good. Going to be pretty good football, and they're going to have to play a little bit better than they did last night. I mean, first half pretty good. Second half, quite defensive in many ways. Okay, they were through, and whether the incentive was there, I don't know. But hopefully, whoever they are, whatever one of those three it's going to be a cracking match.
Yeah, we're talking as we speak on Wednesday. This is going out Sheffield Live on Thursday evening, later on YouTube. I'm going to come to Richard about a project that both of us have been working on lately in a moment. But Kevin, Richard touched there on something that we really ought to expand on. We've got a lot to be proud of, haven't we, in this area, about players who've gone on to play for England.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, didn't mention Calvert-Lewin, of course, who I remember talking to as a graduate coming through at Sheffield United in the TC suite as part of my role there. It's amazing how many people, with Sheffield United connections or South Yorkshire connections, I should say, have progressed to the England side. It's fantastic. And just mentioned there, Harry Maguire, I thought he was absolutely superb, and he makes such a difference to the England team. The way he brings the ball out from the back, it's fantastic. And John Stones has been doing that all his career, obviously, as well. But I think Harry Maguire gives us a whole new dimension in there.
Of course, we've got Aaron Ramsdale waiting in the wings there with an opportunity possibly to play in goal for England. You never know, not wishing anything ill on Jordan Pickford before the end of the tournament. Before we go on to Blades and wider topics on the Euros, Richard, you and I and 8 other football people from the area have recently met up, and you've been in collaboration with another former sports minister in Tracy Crouch over her fan-led government review of football. Just tell us briefly more about that.
Well, I mean, it came out of the European Super League debacle that we had a few months ago now, and it was Alan, I have never seen such an uprising of the whole of football coming together on one single issue, saying this cannot happen. I mean, and really, what it did was to put the whole of the game in jeopardy, because, as you know, we pride ourselves in this country and in Europe of having what we call the pyramid system. And crikey, talking to some of the fans last night where, they were talking from Penistone School, Penistone Church, and how they got into the England side. Kevin's just talking about that now. That's our system. Whereas they were trying to impose possibly an American type system, which is the closed system, and therefore there was uproar against that. But I think it has challenged also how some of the game is run, and really what the government said is they are going to put this review, and I think it's quite a serious review, to be quite honest, Alan, and the possibility of some changes of how can we actually run football more for, as it were, the whole of that pyramid, right from the grassroots right up to the Premier League. How can we do that more effectively? And yeah, there's 10 of us got together in Sheffield, and you're one of them and I'm one of them, so there's 8 others there that have come together, and we put a proposition to the government, a contribution to that debate, which I do understand is being taken very seriously. Probably end of July, Tracy Crouch, who's chairing it for the Prime Minister, is going to come out with an interim report. And then I've no doubt there's going to be a major debate around it. And I'm hoping that our report will inform that debate. And let's hope that we're going to get some changes where clearly this can never happen again. And hopefully it'll be a much fairer way of running football in England than it is at the moment.
Okay, we'll talk about the Sheffield Home of Football, effectively, proposals later on in the show. Before we kick it on to Blades and Euros, Kevin, have you got any wider thoughts about this? How alarmed were you when the Super League proposal came up? Were you one of those that were almost violently, certainly vehemently against it?
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't violently against it, but so I'm glad you chose that wording. I mean, Richard's hit the nail on the head. I think everybody was vehemently against it, as you put. It was just ridiculous, wasn't it? It was just kind of forced upon us without any notice or anything like that. It was just all media headlines, and we were all expected to just go along with it, and it went against everything that football in the UK has kind of ever stood for. But it's just morally wrong, wasn't it? Completely wrong. And I'm pleased there was such a backlash against it. And it's great to hear what Richard has been part of there. And let's hope that we can change things in the future and it won't happen again. And speaking from my own point of view, I played for Wimbledon at the start of my career, who came from non-league and ended up in the old First Division, and we're a Premier League side for a long, long time. So things like that are part of our historic history, as a nation, with clubs being able to rise through the divisions and do very well. So that, and obviously that happens all around Europe as well. So it was just completely wrong on so many levels, and I'm glad that obviously people are doing something about it to stop it happening in the future.
Yeah, I think positive. It's brought football together. I've never known football speak with one voice on an issue quite as vehemently, not violently, as this one. Richard, it's been a strange few weeks, months for Blades fans. Terrible sadness. We lamented the departure of a great manager in Chris Wilder, and suddenly an uplift because an acknowledged good manager has been appointed in his place. How have you seen the whole situation? How would you kind of sum that up in the way that you've seen it?
Well, obviously, I'm not on the inside track of knowing what all the details of why Chris led, other than what was in the media. Very sad. There's no doubt about that. And I'll be honest, Alan, I didn't think that would have happened. I thought that Chris was going to be there. He's going to be an Alex Ferguson work type person, taking for many years and having stability at the club. And therefore, many of us were very concerned when he left, because I think not just about the Chris Wilder, but what we're doing through the academy, that we're bringing a lot of young people. Just talking about, you're talking about Walker, you're talking about Aaron Maguire, and this playing for England. They've come through our academy, and we have, I think, very proud of bringing youngsters through, and there's many more besides those two as well. But so the club seemingly was in a very stable position. Okay, we had a bad season, but I think there was some reasons for that as well. But I will obviously, we're going to have to see now exactly how the new manager takes this over. At the moment, it looks as though he is bringing, or going to bring through, the youngsters that we've got there, as I understand it, that we really have got a crop of we've got an outreach in terms of our academy. The development down at the lane in terms of young people is probably second to none. And I'm hoping that that's going to be used and used very effectively to build the squad to bring us back into the Premier League again.
I mean, as a former sports minister, indeed, as a former Sheffield United director at one time long ago, I mean, you know the inside of football, Richard. I mean, you know Prince Abdullah. What sort of a fella is he? Because most of us have, I mean, I've only had a fleeting conversation with him once. Most of us don't know him.
Well, I don't know him well, far from it. I know him, obviously, because ironically, when he came into the lane, he also became the sports minister of Saudi Arabia. And it was because I've been an ex-sports minister that we had a chat about being sports minister, because I'd also set up, when I was sports minister, a number of links with sport in Saudi Arabia, and we had a memorandum of understanding, all sorts we're going to now. But so therefore, I had a bit of an insight how sport was run there, and so we had discussions around that. More about that, to be honest, Alan, than we did about actually we did at the Lane. When we went into the Premier League and he took over, his people asked me to meet them, which I did, and I said, look, it's a great opportunity for Sheffield. You know, like the Manchester, Liverpools, and have used football to promote their city. That was very much on my agenda, to make sure that we maximise that for Sheffield on the back of on the back of the Blades. So that was the type of discussion I had running the club, and that was not on my remit. But so therefore, and he said that he was very much wanting to take the Blades, develop the Blades. Unfortunately, that's not been the case.
Well, yeah, I mean, you finished with a negative there, so the jury's out for you.
The jury is out. I mean, we're going to see what happens next season. Obviously, I don't know what the demands of the manager are. It would seem that the demands of Wilder weren't met by the owners. And, in this world we've just been talking about the Super League, European Super League. We know that the owners, fortunately or what, are at the end of the day, the people who are in charge. It's not the managers. It is the owners of those clubs that do that. It is they that got the check. It's those that write off, whether they're going to bring people into the club or not. And it would seem that Wilder, didn't get what he wanted. What's going to happen next season with the new manager and the relationship with that board? Well, we'll only see what happens on the pitch. Right.
Kevin, jury out for you as well on the Prince Abdullah regime?
I wouldn't say the jury's out. I think clearly under him. I mean, don't forget he's been here 4 or 5 years, hasn't he? I don't know quite what his input has been in those 4 or 5 years. Maybe a background role, but we've had unparalleled success in the last 4 or 5 years. So. I'm not going to comment on the Chris Wilder thing. Enough's been said about that. I think if Chris could turn the clock back, I think he probably would. But it is what it is, and I was very, very pleased to see the new manager come in. I wasn't as concerned as some people that it took so long for an appointment to be made, because there was absolutely no need to make a rushed appointment. So I think they did very well by just biding their time and making sure they got the right man. And I didn't know too much about the new manager before he became that manager, but I've done a lot of research on him, and certainly the reports that I've been getting and speaking to a few other people, and even things like listening to fan forums and doing research from the Watford and the Fulham supporters, he does seem to be a top class manager, and I'm genuinely excited to get this new season started, to see what he brings to Sheffield United. And Richard touched on the money side of it and the investment side of it. I'm sure, it's a big investment by the Prince in the manager, both in terms of wages and staff, etc., and the length of contract. So I'm sure there will be funds for him to invest in the side as well. And we, as Richard just touched on as well, the excellent crop of youngsters we seem to have coming through. There does seem to be not just one or two. There does seem to be maybe half a dozen who will be pushing for a place in that squad and maybe even a place in the side next season. Certainly in the next, if not next year, it will be in the next couple of years. So the future does look very, very bright as the Sheffield United fan at the moment, despite our disappointment of last season.
Yeah, it's been quite a turnaround in mood. And Kevin, I think you and I agree that Sheffield United needed a manager of stature to replace the one who'd gone. It just couldn't have worked if you'd have had an inexperienced, maybe low-profile left field appointment, would it?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, Chris put his stamp on that team and the whole club in the 4 or 5 years he was here. And it would have been, in my personal opinion, it would have been very, very difficult for someone, for an up-and-coming manager, shall we say, to come in and to follow Chris. Very, very hard act to follow. But I do think the calibre of the manager we've got, I think he's got every chance to succeed and being able to follow Chris Wilder.
Do you agree on that, Richard? Do you think he's got a chance of, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating. There's no doubt. I mean, as Kevin was saying, but at the moment, seemingly what is going on? Yeah, you brought somebody in, obviously, who's got a huge experience. I mean, to be honest, we are a Premier League side. We are looking to go back, into the Premier League again. And so I in that sense, as long as all the assets are used within the club, and they've been being built up, not just in the last few, couple of years, it's been built up over a considerable number of years. As we said, when you got back to playing, for England, it shows that the quality of our academy and the way that that's been brought, which has been, as I said, being built up over a good number of years. And to be fair, the guy who pushed that probably more than anybody else was Kevin McCabe, to make sure that he was bringing in the youngsters. His president, Neil Warnock's brother also was involved in that, and taking over what used to be the old First Browns recreation site or sports club, on Shire Green there. That was a great move. So a lot of things have come together to show that we've got a great academy, and that's now building. And all of them, I remember when Alex Ferguson came to address some of the apprentices down at the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, and because Alex is an engineer, was an apprenticed engineer, and so I've known Alex for a long time, and he came across to address them. But I'll tell you this, Kevin, one of the things he said to the youngsters, he talked about why you should be an apprentice, why you should, have a 5-year apprenticeship, 4-year apprenticeship, whatever. And then the first question one of the apprentices said to him, he got onto football. And what Alex Ferguson said, he said, I will give you 80% of my squad in 5 years' time, because they're all serving their apprenticeships with us now. And I thought, how many managers could say that they can name 80% of the squad in 5 years' time, because it's already coming through the system? And, you look at good managers, look at good clubs, they bring through their youngsters and make sure that there's a progression throughout that. And I think that was the success of Man United, and indeed success of other clubs when they built that in. And I think that's what United's got, or at least the foundations of that.
The great thing for Manchester United was he knew that club could keep all those players.
Well,
Sheffield United haven't been in that position,
No.
albeit they've made money from the academy, but they've not reaped what they've sown, have they?
No.
Quite the same way.
But it did get through. It did get shut to 1 or 2 players in All Ireland who were at the top of the form, but didn't fit into the squad. So he moved them on, did Alex, in no uncertain terms.
Yeah. Kevin, the first foreign manager at Sheffield United. Now, I know that you've got a positive view about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, didn't we? And 4 or 5 years ago, well, maybe 10 years ago, however long ago, I thought of a foreign manager coming into Sheffield United. I thought would be unthinkable. I just didn't think it would be able to happen. But I actually think a foreign manager at the moment is the perfect solution to life after Chris Wilder, let's put it. An English manager, however good an English manager would have been, however experienced he would have been, I think there might have been Always the situation crop up whereby it would have been, oh yeah, but he's not a true Sheffield United fan or something like that. As soon as we'd lost a couple of games, maybe early season, I think the Chris Wilder thing would have raised its head again. All the passion and the tub thumping that Chris Wilder did on the sidelines, and we was one of our own. There's all that kind of thing coming on board. So I think bringing in foreign manager completely takes that out of the situation. There won't be any of that scenario, and it really truly is a fresh start. Not just a new manager, but with a complete new outlook and a new regime.
Yeah, great point. Although the way he likes to play his football is somewhat similar, I think. Front foot, very attacking. Is that important as well?
Apparently so. Yeah. Again, reports we get back is ethos and the way he sets his teams out is very much like Chris would want to set his teams out, and has done it obviously in the past 4 years to get us the success we've had. So yeah, as I say, there might be a slight formation change. It might get a bit technical with a slight formation change, but I think that he will go out and play, front foot as we like to call it, attacking football, and it sounds very exciting.
Also, a tribute to Chris Wilder, and quite a testimony really to the fact that despite the disappointment last season, he built a good squad. You get the vibe that ideally not much is going to change in terms of that squad, that the core is there to return to the Premier League. Is that the way you would see it? And the sounding seemed to be that Slaviša Djukanovic is looking at it thinking, well, I don't have too much work to do there in terms of recruitment. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We may lose one or two. Talk of Sander Bergen there. There's talk of now talk of Ramsdale going, for a lot of money. But yeah, the basis of the squad is obviously there. And although we had a very, very disappointing season, when you look at the stats and how many games we won, lost, drawn, and the points total, you think, Christ Almighty, they must be a bad side. Now the truth is, we weren't relegation fodder. We had one or two games where we got hammered, and that was just after Chris left. But certainly for the first half of that season, we were losing games by the odd goal, and we were well in games, and we were drawing games that we should have won, and we were losing games, silly mistakes at the back. Ramsdale took time to settle down, and I don't think we actually got the points we deserved. I'm not saying we would have had enough to stay up anyway, but I think we weren't as bad as people who looked at the table would maybe think we were. I think
that's dead right, Kevin. I think you're dead right, Kevin.
We weren't a terrible side by any stretch of the imagination.
The number of times, Kevin, the number of times commentators said, that particularly in last games when we'd nothing to play for effectively, but they were putting fantastic performances in. And a lot of commentators were saying, how is it that they're actually at bottom of the table playing this type of football? And then you go back to them stats. What were they? 16, 17 games, lost by 1 goal. Well, the season before we'd had 16, 17 games, won by one goal, and it was as marginal as that. But I thought throughout the season, other than 1 or 2 games, I think they played some bloody good football.
Yeah, so even the games we lost, we were in the games for a long period of time.
Yeah,
and we're letting some late goals, and as I say, some silly errors at the back, and obviously as the season progressed and we couldn't win that first game, the confidence drained away a bit, and it became more and more difficult to actually get that first win on the board. And then, as you rightly say, once relegation was kind of inevitable. Not mathematically inevitable, but inevitable by about, I don't know, mid-January, I think, something like that. I think we all knew we were doomed. They started to play some decent football, and the confidence, and the pressure was lifted off them maybe. And we didn't look a bad side in the end, as the results showed.
No.
Well, finally for part 1, just the finances, and Kevin referred there, maybe a couple of big players might go, and you could understand it. If a phenomenal offer came in for Ramsdale, and applause here for Chris Wilder's recruitment on that one. You got some criticism for others, but 13 million or thereabouts, you might get twice that now. Sander Bergen, people might understand it, but generally, Richard, Sheffield United, 2 seasons in the Premier League. a substantial parachute payment, it should be a healthy situation, shouldn't it? So you can't see why money couldn't be invested to support Jokanovic, which Kevin believes will be the case.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that obviously the United are in this, I would have thought, reasonably good position now with the parachute payments, whether you agree or disagree with that, which is a debatable point, but let's park that one on one side. That yes, with those parachute payments, there should be, as I say, the money's there to invest in, plus the fact that if they build on what's already there, i.e. the academy, then I think those two things coming together should give the manager quite a good base on which to move forward. But again, it will be decisions of the board that decides that to some extent, and not the manager. And that, I think is what a lot of people will be looking at. I think early on in the season is how many are they going to get shut up? What is the receipts for those? What is the parachute payments, and how does the manager blend in the players there and the ones coming through on the academy as well? That's the skill set.
Yeah, although there might be just a subtle difference, Kevin, just briefly, in terms of the recruitment process and transfers. I mean, Chris, as we all know, was totally hands-on, and that's the method that has worked spectacularly for him in his career, and wanted to continue that. Sheffield United have wanted to filter in a director of football there. Any great alarms on that, Kevin? Or it's the way a lot of the football world works now anyway, isn't it, really?
No qualms whatsoever. I think we get the best of both worlds, don't we? But the director of football will come in, and obviously a little bit more global appeal to get some more players in from all over the world. But I know that he's already met with Paul Mitchell, and there seems to be a relationship building there, and he's got a great track record of picking up English-based players from working with Chris. So I'm sure we've got the best of both worlds there.
Absolutely. Sure terrific as well that Paul Mitchell, a highly respected guy, is staying. I think that's a huge boost for the new regime at Sheffield United. Thanks, gents. Kicking on to the reform of football, what needs to be done in part two, with Richard Caborn and Kevin Gage chipping in on that as well, hopefully. Kevin, I'm sure you've got a few ideas on that front. See you in a couple of minutes.